10 spine-chilling small-town horrors exposed, terrifying tales you won't dare to finish. Sarah clutched the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles white as she pulled into Maplewood. The charm of the place was almost choking, with its candy-colored houses and neighbors waving from their porches, but beneath that polished surface lurked secrets that darkened the air. It felt wrong. The moment she and her 2 children, Mia and Leo, stepped out of the car, a chill curled up her spine, whispering of things unseen. What had she brought them into? Their new home, a creaky old house on the edge of town, seemed to breathe a sigh of relief with each gust of wind. It was like a living being filled with whispers and tales that tried to escape through the cracks in the walls. At first, days melted into one another in a haze of laughter, bike rides along tree-lined streets, and friendly coffees with other mothers. But as dusk descended, the world transformed. Innocent smiles hardened into grim lines, and laughter faded into the night like smoke. With trepidation, Sarah ventured into the town's social circles. But conversations often turned hushed the moment she approached, eyes darting away. The laughter echoed, then sputtered into silence, a jarring contrast that twisted in her gut. Shadows outside her windows felt too long, too watchful. What was going on here? She murmured to herself, but the answer proved elusive. One night, while bathing Mia and Leo, the soft hum of voices floated through the air, barely audible. Sarah felt icy fingers caress her skin as she crossed the room to peek through the curtain. A gathering of locals stood outside, grim-faced and intent. The sheriff's silhouette cut a sharp figure among them. Why were they looking her way? Panic clawed at her throat, paranoia gnawed like a rat. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue at Book Club. A mother shared a chilling story, the few families that vanished in the night, without a trace. Sarah's heart thundered. The warmth began to feel like a mask. Masks were easy to wear, but they could hide a multitude of horrors. When Sarah pressed the sheriff the next day, his murky replies twisted the knife deeper. Trust felt like a distant memory, leaving her alone with the creeping dread. One fateful night, her children woke her drawn outside by a haunting, rhythmic chant woven through the air. Their giggles echoed, but the laughter felt wrong, perverse. No, no! She hissed, scrambling after them. The woods loomed like dark giants, swallowing them whole as she followed in terrified pursuit. Through the treetops, the moon cast a slender beam onto a gathering. Town elders encircled a bonfire, their faces twisted with an unsettling mix of zeal and hunger. For the townsfolk's blood, a family for our kin, they chanted, and the words hit her like a punch to the gut. Time twisted, each second stretching unbearably long as the flames reflected in their eyes. She couldn't reach her children, couldn't save them, they were too close, falling deeper in. With primal fear washing over her, Sarah felt a surge of desperation. The sheer horror of that moment consumed her. One question electrified her thoughts. Could she rescue her children before the grim secret of Maplewood swallowed them whole? Sarah's heart thundered in her chest as she watched Mia and Leo inch closer to the bonfire, their faces lit with a mix of fascination and terror. Each step they took felt like a death knell, every flicker of flame dancing like a vulture hungry for prey. She clawed at the dark air, desperate to call out and shake them from this entrancing spell, but words caught in her throat, suffocated by fear. Come back. Please. She finally screamed, her voice raw and trembling, drowning in the oppressive hum of the chant. The townsfolk's chanting swelled, resonating like an ancient song woven into the night's very fabric. It felt alive, hungry, eager. The elders turned, their faces sharp shadows against the firelight. Beady eyes glinted with a menacing glimmer, welcoming her into their fold, as if she had always belonged there. "You're too late," one of them hissed, a voice like brittle leaves crunching underfoot. "The offering has begun." Each word dripped with malice, a sickening promise of the inevitable. The ground felt unsteady beneath her, like the earth conspired against her. She plunged forward, each stride heavy with dread. Mia clutched Leo's hand, but they seemed entranced, their giggles transforming into eerie echoes of the chant. The innocence of their laughter twisted into something monstrous. "Why are you doing this?" Sarah gasped, her feet stuttering to a halt mere feet from the bonfire, heat radiating against her skin. The flames licked at the sky, casting grotesque shadows that danced on the trees like phantoms hungry for their next victim. "To protect our town," a woman spoke, her voice smooth yet cracked. "We must feed the darkness to keep it at bay. Families are sacrificed, and in return, the town thrives. The children of Maplewood must join us, to carry on the legacy." Sarah felt bile rise in her throat, choking back the horror. Every instinct pushed her to fight, but panic held her feet frozen in place. She reached out to her children. "Mia. Leo. We need to go." But they continued to sway, lost in the rhythm, bodies bending to the dark hymn that filled the air. It was a sickening ballet of surrender. "No!" she shouted, her desperation morphing into fury. Without thinking, she lunged forward, grabbing both children. Mama bear instincts kicked in, forcing her to shake them. "Wake up. This isn't right. We need to leave." For a moment, her words seemed to pierce the fog. Mia blinked, confusion spilling across her face. "But Mommy, they're our friends." "No. They're not," Sarah insisted, fear tangling with the need to protect. She turned, pulling them away with all the strength she could muster, adrenaline surging as instinct and terror propelled her. The elders shouted, their faces twisting with rage while the chant grew more frantic, more chaotic. But even as they ran, the air thickened, pressing down like an iron hand. Shadows slithered after them, whispering of forgotten promises and dark pacts. Escape felt like a distant dream, shrouded in darkness. With every step, the trees stretched and twisted, the path becoming a maze. Where was the car? Where was safety? Panic swelled again, clawing, gnawing, and she pushed through the underbrush, grappling for the light that once felt reassuring. Suddenly, an agonizing shriek pierced the night, the sound of a desperate cry. Sarah spun around, heart in her throat. A figure stumbled from the other side of the woods, a woman, frantic and wild-eyed, drenched in shadows. "They're coming for you. They see you," she yelled, her voice cracking. In an instant, the reality sank in. The horrible truth of Maplewood wasn't confined to her family. It was a malignancy, a predator feeding on the vulnerable, ever watchful, ever hungry. With dread pooling in her stomach, Sarah realized the terrifying knowledge the woman revealed: there was no escape. As the fiery chant echoed menacingly behind them, Sarah's breath faltered. Darkness closed in, and staring into the abyss, she wondered if she could save her children before the town's embrace condemned them all. But the elders had seen them escape. The hunt had begun. The silence hung thick in the air, broken only by the ragged breaths of Sarah and her children. The shadows stirred, elongating as if the night itself were reaching out to drag them back. She glanced behind them, the bonfire a monstrous glow against the pitch black, a beacon of horror that called out for sacrifice. Mia and Leo stumbled, fatigue battling against the adrenaline coursing through their veins. Sarah could feel the grip of terror tightening around her heart. "We have to keep moving," she shouted, but the urgency in her voice only seemed to fuel the rising panic in their eyes. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from the thicket to their left. Cold tendrils of fear snaked up her spine. They weren't alone. "Stay close," she hissed, pulling them tightly to her side. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, but the path twisted deeper into a maze of trees, each one a sentinel of the town's dark secrets. The woman who had warned them vanished into the night, leaving only an echo of her warning. The shadows seemed to pulse with life, moving in and out of the darkness, and with every passing moment, it felt as though the woods themselves conspired against them. "Mommy, I'm scared," Mia whispered, her voice trembling. "I know. I know," Sarah replied, forcing herself to sound calm. Despair clawed at her. She prayed, silently begging for the strength to protect her children. In that moment, she vowed, she would not let them take her family. A sudden crackle echoed through the trees, making her heart leap. "Run!" she yelled, launching them forward, the trio barreling through the underbrush. Behind them, the chant crescendoed, morphing into a cacophony of anger, desperation, and something much darker. Branches snagged at their clothes, tearing at Sarah as if the woods were alive, fighting to bind them. The air turned frigid, and an unnatural wind whipped through, howling like a beast. Shadows blurred together, becoming forms that twisted and paused, watching them with insatiable hunger. As Sarah tore through the foliage, she felt her feet falter over a root and stumbled. She turned, ready to continue but froze at the sight before her a nightmarish figure, an elder with skin ashen and withered, marred by lines that told tales of the dark pact they had forged with the town. "You can't run," it rasped, its voice a ghastly melody of laughter and hatred. "You're part of it now. Maplewood, it won't let you go." Sarah's cheeks flooded with heat as every ounce of dread crashed over her. "Get away from us!" she screamed, her voice hoarse. With a swift motion, she yanked both Mia and Leo around, ready to launch into the night again, but the shadows multiplied, cutting them off at every twist. The branches coiled like fingers, reaching for them, blocking all escape routes. An ear-splitting roar erupted from the distance, a sound that froze Sarah in place. It was a call, an invitation into the depths of despair, and beneath the longing to flee, a sickening pull of curiosity began to weave through her veins. The town, what had it promised? What had it traded for survival? No. No. She murmured to herself as they stood cornered, panic clawing its way up her throat. She had to remind herself of what was real, of the children next to her, of the blood that tangled their fates. Just then, Leo whispered, "Mom? What if they just want to help?" Sarah's heart sank. Help? God, help meant something different here. "They're lying, Leo. We need to fight. We want to be a part of this." As shadows encircled them, wrapping tighter and tighter, Sarah felt every heartbeat of her children, the warmth of their bodies, mingling with the cold dread creeping in. The chant rose once more, a siren call that wrapped around her, trying to draw her in, promising safety and belonging, but at what cost? In a frantic moment, Sarah turned to the children, "We have to find another way. There has to be something." But just as she spoke, the shadows lunged forward, figures materializing from the dark like wraiths intent on claiming their prize, and she realized, the hunt wasn't just for her children, it was for her soul. With a last surge of fury, she grasped their hands tightly. They could not be taken here. Together, they would fight, or die trying. As the town's elders closed in, Sarah felt the night throb with stillness, an ominous tension heavy with dread. Would she find that elusive escape, or would they be the next offering to Maplewood's sinister legacy? The only thing certain was that the chase had not ended, it had only just begun. With fierce determination burning in her chest, Sarah pulled her children tighter against her, feeling the chill seeping from the shadows that closed in around them. The wraith-like figures swirled and flickered, their faces hidden, but the glint of hunger in their eyes was clear. They lunged forward together, and a primal instinct took over Sarah. She would not go down without a fight. "Hold on!" she shouted, gripping Mia and Leo's hands tighter than ever. She turned sharply to the left, where the woods seemed a little less oppressive, a barely discernible path winding through the trees. They stumbled over roots and vines, but Sarah urged them on, the cacophony of voices behind them rising to a deafening pitch, each word laced with taunts and threats. "You cannot escape," was the most chilling, echoing in her mind like a haunting mantra. Suddenly, the ground began to slope down sharply, and she hesitated, the fear of the unknown pulling at her thoughts. "Mom, where are we going?" Leo panted, his small legs struggling to keep up. "We're gonna find a way out. Just trust me." What she wouldn't give for a glimmer of light or a sign of human life. But this was no normal forest, it was alive with something dark. The trees loomed overhead like sentinels, their gnarled branches whispering secrets that sent shivers down her spine. The roar sounded again, closer now, a guttural growl that reverberated through her bones. Another push of adrenaline surged through her, an instinctive fight-or-flight reaction. She didn't want to know what was chasing them, she only wanted to keep her children safe. As they plunged deeper into the forest, the air thickened, growing heavier, almost suffocating. "Mom!" Mia cried, her voice cracking with fear. "Don't let them get us. They can't. They won." Sarah chanted, trying to tame the terror clawing within her. But doubt slipped in like a blade. What if they would? Then, in a glimmer of hope, she spotted a faint light flickering through the trees. "There!" she exclaimed, determination igniting in her chest. "We can reach it." They raced toward the light, but every step felt like wading through molasses. Shadows snatched at her clothes, tugging her backward, whispering lies that twisted her resolve. Just as they neared the source, the light flickered out, plunging them into a suffocating darkness. Panic surged within her like a tidal wave. "No! Come on, I can't," but fear paralyzed her, slamming her body against an invisible wall. "Mommy! I can't see." Leo whimpered. "Stay close," she shouted, breath hitching as dread clawed at her throat. The world around them felt alive, a monstrous creature that fed off their fear, and behind them, the chanting continued growing louder, more insistent. "You are ours." A dreadful thought blossomed in her mind. What if this darkness was not simply a realm of shadows but part of the town, alive with the will to keep them imprisoned? With all her strength, she swung around, straining her eyes, trying to pierce the black void. "We need to find that light. We can't stop moving," Sarah urged, the urgency fueling her. Then a figure emerged through the darkness, a child, pale and ghostly, staring blankly at them. Its mouth opened wide, but no sound escaped, only a muted scream of despair echoed in Sarah's mind. "Mom!" Mia shrieked, clutching onto Sarah's arm, eyes wide as silver plates. The shadows began to ripple, pulling back slightly, as if considering their next move. Sarah felt the fear turn to fury. "We're not letting you take them," she shouted at the specter. Her voice rang out like a bullet in the thick air. But the woods shifted around them, revealing glints of white bones amidst the fallen leaves, a warning colliding with her thoughts that grew louder. "You are here to stay. Run!" The command was harsh, guttural, as the darkness moved to claim what it thought belonged to it. The shadows lunged again, more tendrils reaching, clawing at their limbs. There was no choice, they had to fight through the terror. But as they turned to bolt into the shadows once more, the ground beneath them shuddered. The howling deepened, resonating through the trees, reverberating like a heartbeat, one that felt eerily similar to her own. And then, just as Sarah felt her resolve slip away, a jagged laugh echoed through the crowd of beasts, chilling her. "The pact has been sealed. Welcome to Maplewood." Something deep inside her twisted and turned, a knowledge that unraveled the strands of hope in her mind. She was stepping deeper into a realm she had no knowledge of, a connection to a nightmare that pulled her children into its fold. As the shadows lunged forward with terrifying ferocity, and every breath felt stolen from her lungs, Sarah's heart pounded. Would she find the strength to push through the rising darkness, or had Maplewood already claimed them? In that moment of despair, a single thought trapped her in terror: what if this wasn't just about survival? What if the town's true hunger was something far worse? Would they emerge from its grasp, or become another whisper among the echoes of the damned? The darkness thickened around them, pressing in, wrapping like a suffocating blanket. Sarah felt her heart pounding louder, each thump ricocheting through her skull. Mia. Leo. Keep moving. Her voice sliced through the dread, but the shadows were relentless, hot on their heels. She stumbled forward, the ground beneath shifting like quicksand. Each step felt heavier, as if the earth itself was conspiring to root her in place. The forest seemed to come alive, branches snapping and creaking like skeletal fingers reaching out from the grave. She stole a glance back, and her blood ran cold. The figures were closer now, faces emerging from darkness, twisted in agony and hunger. What do they want? Leo's voice trembled, his tiny body shuddering against hers. Sarah swallowed hard, forcing bravery she didn't feel to surface. They want us to be scared, baby. We can't give in. But even as she spoke, the certainty in her voice began to wane. The air felt thick with their terror, dense enough to choke on. She needed a plan. Frantically, she scanned the landscape, searching for an escape route. Every tree, every shadow, seemed to whisper lies of hopelessness. But, in the fog of despair, a flicker caught her eye, the faint gleam of white stone peeking through the underbrush. Over there. She pointed, hope igniting once more. They pushed through the bramble, the darkness scraping at their skin, but she could see structures creeping into view, a forgotten graveyard, the headstones ancient and cracked, stories torn from the earth, half forgotten and yearning. Before they reached it, the air turned electric, the shadows coiling in a sinister dance. The mocking laughter burst forth again, echoing like a taunt through the trees. You'll join us soon. It jeered, the chorus growing loud enough to drown out her thoughts. Hold my hand. Sarah ordered, gathering her courage, dragging her children forward into the treacherous graveyard. As they stumbled in, the oppressive weight of the woods lightened just a fraction, the atmosphere shifting. It felt sacred, as if the spirits of the dead were holding court over the living. But there was no relief. Behind the tombstones, the shadows pulled back, forming a barrier, revealing a darker force lurking just beyond the headstones. Sarah could feel eyes boring into her, hungry and knowing. She could sense something ancient here, something that could see right through her, reaching into her spirit. Look! Mia shrieked, pointing at a tombstone. The epitaph was faded, moss-covered, but just legible enough. Here lies Edith, bound by fear. The word sent a chill through Sarah, because she felt an overwhelming connection. Was that her fate? Mommy, Leo whispered, trembling, his small frame pressed against her. What does it mean? I don't know, she said, breath hitching. But as they stood before the grave, a gust of wind whipped through the trees, chilling her to the bone, and the ground rumbled beneath her feet. Panic surged again. What if the ground heaved, swallowed them whole in its grasp? Run! Sarah screamed, her instincts kicking in. They darted deeper into the graveyard, weaving between stones, the shadows swirling in pursuit. Each heartbeat echoed like a war drum. She felt them close, guttural growls, the laughter morphing into shouts of frustration as they failed to reach their prey. But the graveyard was alive, too, enveloping them in a strange energy that felt like desperation mingled with something darker. The spirits within seemed to read her fear, and she could almost feel them urging her forward. What if this wasn't just a hiding place? What if this was a sanctuary, or a trap? The thought twisted in her mind, ugly and cruel. From the corner of her eye, shadows slithered together, forming a more solid shape, a towering figure crowned in darkness, watching, waiting. Mom, Mia whimpered again, her voice barely a whisper. Why won't they stop? They see. Sarah's voice faltered but remained firm. She had to hold on to hope. She had to fight for her children. We will find a way out. But as they pressed on, the shadows. roared, a cacophony of fury as it surged forward, and at that moment, a sudden uncertainty gripped her. Had they stumbled into a sanctuary, or a deeper pit of despair? Would the spirits protect them, or demand a sacrifice? You cannot run forever. The figure howled, drowning her thoughts, pulling at her sanity. And right there, amid the shadows, beneath the whispered warnings of the dead, she felt the urgency to uncover the secrets of Maplewood. They were wrapped in darkness, and stepping forward could mean freedom or doom. Then the ground trembled violently. They stumbled, falling to their knees as the earth split open, revealing a maw that hungered in the darkness. "Mom!" came desperate cries, echoing the new threat. As everything fell into chaos, the pull of the abyss beckoned to them. What lay ahead was uncertain, shrouded in darkness, but one thing was clear: if they didn't act quickly, they might be lost forever. And as shadows loomed around them, the question lingered painfully: would they be claimed by Maplewood, or could they fight their way back to the surface? The earth split apart with a deafening roar, the gnawing abyss yawning wide, a dark mouth ready to consume them. The ground trembled beneath Sarah's knees, and panic surged anew, coursing through her bloodstream like icy venom. She clutched Mia and Leo's hands tighter, her grip trembling but resolute. "Help me!" Leo screamed, his wide eyes glistening with terror. The chaos rattled him. The shadows lunged closer, stretching, clawing at their backs. The laughter morphed into wails, a chorus of despair that echoed through the graveyard as if the trapped souls were clamoring for release. The scent of damp earth mixed with something more acrid, like burnt offerings, twisted around them. "Hold on!" Sarah shouted, but the words felt hollow as despair roared within her. It squeezed her chest tight, and in the flickering light of a nearby lantern, she could see the figures forming behind them, dreadful, contorted faces, desperately reaching out, craving. "We can't let them take us!" Mia cried out through her tears, her small body shaking. The knowledge gripped Sarah: fear was what they craved. Underneath the dread, a primal urge to survive surged forth, as if ignited by the flickering flames of desperation. "Stay close. We need to find higher ground." She turned, searching for some kind of salvation among the graves, and then she spotted it, a warped mausoleum rising in the distance, just beyond the open maw of the earth. "Over there." She pointed, her voice filled with urgency. "We have to get to that mausoleum." They stumbled toward it, the ground shifting ominously beneath them. A low growl roared behind them, and she could feel the rush of darkness, hungry, relentless, falling away from the trees, ebbing closer like a tide. "Faster!" she urged. The mausoleum loomed larger, towering above the graveyard, but with each step, it felt further away, warped by the shadow's illusion. The shadows roared behind them, unrelenting. They were no longer just specters, they manifested in great thrumming bursts of anger, relentless in their pursuit. The earth beneath Sarah cracked again, sending her stumbling to the side, and she barely regained her footing. They couldn't stop, couldn't think of what awaited them. "Mom!" Leo wailed, his tiny legs faltering. But she grabbed him, hoisted him up until she felt her strength lifting him from the ground, pushing through sheer will. As they neared the mausoleum, a flicker of light caught her eye, a faint pulse shimmering against the aged stones. "We're almost there," she shouted over her shoulder as the anguished cries escalated. She could feel something behind them fast, every instinct pointing to the looming danger. Once at the mausoleum, Sarah flung the heavy door open, a glimmer of hope coursing through her veins. But what lay inside wasn't salvation, it was full of darkness. The air was thick and stale, an oppressive weight pressing down on her shoulders as they crossed over the threshold. She directed her children inside, but the shadows followed, creeping toward them like smoke, curling around their feet. "Close the door," Mia yelled, terrified. "I can't hold it," Sarah cried, panicking. But the door swung shut almost on its own, a force like an otherworldly breath pulling it closed. A moment of quiet, a heartbeat where the roars fell silent. Then, a low rumble, a whispering cacophony encroached, chilling the air as if the very walls of the mausoleum were closing in. As the edges of darkness curled, revealing fleeting glimpses of faces, Sarah realized there was a purpose, a reason for the shadows' pursuit. They were trapped, but why? What did the spectral figures want from them? "Mom, we have to get out," Leo pleaded, clinging to her leg. In that moment, she felt the walls vibrate, a message woven into the ancient stone. It dawned on her with sudden clarity, they were not alone in this space. And whatever was with them held the answer to why they were drawn into Maplewood's grasp. But what sacrifice would it demand for their escape? As fear closed its grip on her once more, she stood frozen, staring into the swirling darkness, ready to confront the choices awaiting them. The shadows watched, patient and hungry. Would she unravel the truth, or seal their fate in everlasting darkness? With a breath quaking in her chest, Sarah whispered, "What do you want from us?" And then a voice not her own sounded in the hollow mausoleum, echoing, powerful. "You must choose." The voice echoed again, an unseen force hanging in the musty air like a heavy shroud. "You must choose," it repeated, each word crawling down Sarah's spine, igniting the hairs on the back of her neck. What do we have to choose?" She stammered, wide-eyed, trying to pierce through the darkness that warped around them. Her heart hammered wildly against her ribs, the panic tightening its grip again. A low laughter resonated, followed by whispers, distorted murmurs that seemed to ripple through the very stones around them. Shadows flickered like dying fires, taking strange shapes that jutted out with grotesque features. It was as if the mausoleum itself was alive, breathless with anticipation, awaiting her answer. Leo clutched at his mother's leg, his small face ghostly pale. "Mom! I don't want to stay here," he cried, the tremor in his voice slicing through the heavy silence. Mia pressed against Sarah's side, her eyes wide, reflecting pure dread. Sarah swallowed hard, her mind racing. The looming figures felt closer, their presence suffocating. She could almost feel icy fingers brushing against her cheeks, urging her to decide. "What do we have to choose?" She shouted into the oppressive void, desperation clawing at her voice. The shadows coiled tighter as the voice replied again, softer this time, but filled with unsettling weight. "You must choose who will stay." The implication struck like a thunderbolt, sending her heart into freefall. "Stay? Stay where?" She fought against the swirling panic. "What do you mean?" The laughter intensified, now mingled with distant cries that echoed through the stone walls, a mournful sound that twisted her stomach. The faces of the shadows shimmered and pulsed, a mirrored reflection of horror and longing, desperate souls seeking release. Then, she saw a flicker of memory behind one spectral face. A dark-haired woman, eyes wide with terror, staring out from a realm beyond the grave. Suddenly, a connection sparked through the twisting darkness like a snapping wire. They were all tethered, somehow linked by a choice not their own. "Who do you want?" she asked, her voice wavering. "Is it one of us?" The shadows surged forward, the air heavy with anticipation. Each figure seemed to jostle for position, as if revealing something hidden in their midst. Mia shuddered, breaking the silence that felt like a vice tightening around them. "Mom, we need to leave. Please." The air thickened with despair, and a coldness spread through Sarah's bones. The mausoleum felt like a tomb, suffocating them with its dark secrets. "Choose or be consumed," the voice urged once more, low and haunting. Sarah's breath hitched, panic slicing through her. She had read stories, heard whispers of those who made deals in places like this, sacrifices for salvation. But the thought of losing a child, offering one up to the shadows while the other remained, felt like standing on the edge of a ravine. The shadows encircled them tighter, faces morphing into deep voids of despair. She felt Leo tremble against her, his warmth fading into the chill that enveloped the mausoleum. "Mom!" Leo's plea cut through her thoughts, and suddenly clarity flickered. "We'll fight. We can fight them together. Torn between the truth, the darkness before her, and the raging love for her children, Sarah felt a pulse of anger surge through her. No. We won't choose. You don't have power over us. The shadow figures recoiled, a cacophony of anguished wails rising into a crescendo of fury. The walls shook, and pressure filled the air like storm clouds gathering. But the fight was just beginning. And as the whispers turned into howls, Sarah wondered, would defiance ignite freedom, or would it seal their fates forever in the maw of darkness that threatened to swallow them whole? With a desperate resolve, she set her gaze on the swirling shadows, her heart racing. We will not be consumed. The shadows recoiled again, and in this struggle, a new choice unfolded, one that could bring hidden truths or devastation. But as the voice murmured like a haunting melody, then you will suffer the consequence. A tremor of realization gripped her. What would the shadows demand in return for their reckless bravery? In the eye of the storm, with darkness swirling around them, Sarah braced for the impossible. Survival was no longer a luxury, it was a battle for their very souls. And deep within the mausoleum, something ancient made a sound, a low growl, reverberating with dark promises. Choose or your reckoning awaits. The air crackled with a heavy tension, a suffocating pressure that surged against Sarah and her children. Shadows writhed, breathing like living entities, eager to consume every fragment of light within the mausoleum. Events cascaded rapidly, plunging them deeper into a chasm of despair. With each heartbeat, Sarah could feel time slipping away. The walls, damp and cold, seemed to close in like a malignant maw, hungry and relentless. Stay strong, kids, she croaked, trying to sound reassuring despite the terror that clawed at her throat. Mom! What do we do? Leo's voice trembled in the thick darkness, a child lost in a world of horrors he couldn't understand. Together, no matter what happens. Her hands shook as she gripped Mia's arm, though the girl's wide eyes shimmered with fear, reflecting the chaos swirling around them. It was impossible to ignore the whispers echoing through the ancient stones, caterwauling a chorus of anguish, each voice a testament to the despair that awaited them. Without warning, the shadows surged forward, a whirlwind of ghastly forms. Faces twisted in agony loomed close, their eyes voids of sorrow and rage. They stretched out skeletal fingers, reaching for the warmth that radiated from Sarah and her children. She recoiled, squeezing her eyes shut for a fleeting moment, praying it would make the nightmare vanish. Open your eyes. Look! Mia exclaimed, her voice shaking. When Sarah did, she gasped. In the heart of the shadows, a grotesque figure stepped forth, a loathsome amalgamation of tortured souls. It raised a hand, and a faint glow erupted from its palm, illuminating the hollow pupilless eyes of the wretched. You defy the darkness, it intoned, its voice a mix of desolation and malevolence. But the weight of your rebellion has a price. To hell with your prices! Sarah shouted, stepping forward with fierce defiance. The shadows flickered uncertainly at her boldness, hesitating as if surprised by her spirit. Then you embrace suffering, the creature retorted, and suddenly, a freezing gust surged through the mausoleum, plunging her into a blur of memories, each more horrifying than the last. She was back in her childhood home, but the shadows loomed there too, tearing apart laughter and joy. She could hear the echoes of her past friends she had lost, moments of regret and an overwhelming despair washed over her. The creature thrived on her anguish, harvesting it like grain. Mom! Snap out of it! Leo's frightened voice echoed, breaking the trance. With a frantic breath, Sarah shook off the memories, focusing on her children's terrified faces. I want to let it take you. She yelled, grounding herself in her love for them. The shadows recoiled again, and the voices surged, now a menacing chant, one must remain. Or all will fall. No! Mia screamed, eyes glistening with tears. We can't choose. Faces from the shadows twisted and morphed, each one in a silent plea. It was a plea to be understood, to be acknowledged, to find peace. But that recognition rattled Sarah, the implication clawed at her conscience. If one must remain, who would it be? Enough! She screamed, feeling the weight of impossible choices press down on her. We won't participate. We won't choose. The creature's laugh erupted, mingling with chilling howls from the shadows, sending shivers racing down Sarah's spine. You will witness the truth, only then will the decision reveal itself. The air thickened again, crowded with dread, and Sarah felt a sudden lurch. The ground beneath them trembled, and the mausoleum began to shift. Stone creaked and groaned as though it were alive, clawing at the very foundation of their sanity. In that moment, a blinding light erupted from the shadows, splitting the darkness like a severed cord. Heart-pounding and breathless, Sarah realized it wasn't just a light, it was the essence of each soul wrapped up in the creature's grasp. Shimmering figures burst forth, trapped spirits seeking liberation. Save us! They cried, a whisper threading through the devastation. But at what cost? A glimmer of hope blossomed in Sarah's heart, but it thrummed with an equal darkness. A choice would still rise above the chaos. As the shadows writhed, she felt the walls throb with a terrible urgency, beckoning her toward a precipice of salvation and terror. Would the truth save them or plunge them deeper into despair? Face the reckoning, the creature rumbled, its ominous presence looming larger as reality twisted around them. As the haunting wails crescendoed, a new choice emerged from the darkness, forcing Sarah to wonder if resisting the shadows might unleash something even more horrific than they could imagine. The shadows swirled violently, and with a whisper, the voice returned. Choose or face the echoes of your own demise. The ground quaked violently, almost as if the mausoleum was alive, rebelling against its own existence. Sarah had only a fleeting moment to regain her composure. The wails of trapped souls filled the space, mingling with the foul laughter of the creature. Each voice was a sharp dagger, stabbing into her very essence, demanding acknowledgement, demanding a choice. No! She shouted, fighting against the rising tide of dread. But the shadows thickened, closing in, wrapping around them. She felt their icy grip, and the whispers turned into a frenzied cacophony, drowning her will. Choose. They echoed, the word vibrating through her bones. Mia clutched her mother's arm tighter, her small fingers trembling. Mom! We can't choose. It's not right. Tension coiled tightly in Sarah's chest. The creature before them morphed, revealing the anguished faces of those it had consumed. Their hollow eyes seemed to plead for a savior, yet their expressions twisted into something grotesque, as if they were trapped in a perpetual cycle of torment. It grows stronger the longer you wait. With a jolt, Sarah was forced back again, memories flooding her thoughts, threatening to drag her under. She was standing in her mother's kitchen, scents of baked goods mixing with laughter. Then, the smell darkened, the joy crowded out by shadows, leaving her in a suffocating void. Voices echoed in her mind, friends she had lost, desperate apologies she had never given, lives she hadn't saved. Look at what you've lost. The creature sneered, drawing in closer, feeding on her vulnerability. Look at what you could still save. Tears streamed down Mia's face, reflecting the shimmering light of the souls gathered, begging, yearning. Mom! Please! Back away! Sarah shouted, and a sudden surge of clarity rushed through her. This creature thrived on despair, on forcing them to weigh their choices against death. It wanted her to unlock some kind of damning truth, but what it didn't understand was her fierce will to protect them. Let them go! Sarah cried out, resistance surging in every syllable. The shadows shrank back for a moment, surprised. The unbearable weight shifted, the air alive with hope, or was it despair? Denial is not choice, the entity spat, as the chaos intensified around them. Sarah's breath quickened, panic clawed at her. Was she denying them the chance to be free? The truth lay heavy on her heart. What if I sacrifice myself? She blurted out, desperation edging her voice. Let my children go. I'll stay. The shadows froze. Mia's eyes widened, horror spreading across her face. "No, Mom. You can't. Don't you dare, Sarah!" Leo yelled, his voice cracking, anchoring Sarah back to reality. "This isn't a game." The creature snarled, its eyes glowing a sickly green. "A sacrifice? How quaint. But you do not know the cost." As the shadows writhed and coiled, the air thick with the smell of damp earth and decay, Sarah's pulse raced. Would her sacrifice even matter? What awaited her if she took that fateful step? "No!" she screamed, her voice drowning out the howls. "I will not choose this way." In that moment of defiance, the mausoleum began to shake more violently. One of the walls cracked, an ominous fissure creeping along its length, light spilling through. Faint silhouettes of the lost souls emerged, whispering encouragement, urging her to stand firm. "Face the truth," the echoes urged. The being grew frantic. "You only prolong your suffering." But just as hope began to build, a malevolent roar surged from the shadows. "You will suffer together." Another tremor rocked the ground, almost ripping apart their world. Heart gripped in terror, Sarah turned to her children. "Hold on to me." The walls were collapsing, the shadows merging with the blinding light spilling forth. And then, everything seemed to fracture. In the sudden chaos, one last deafening decision rang out through the mausoleum. "Choose one," echoed in thunderous tones. Would they plummet into the abyss of despair, or could they forge a path into the light? As shadows danced and the ground threatened to swallow them whole, Sarah raised a trembling hand toward the flickering radiance, praying for a way to save them all or herself. Could love defy the darkness, or was that merely a fantasy? The truth awaited just beyond the thresholds, or was it the final doom? The ground trembled one final time, and Sarah's heart raced as realization struck her. It wasn't just about choosing, it was about the power of their unity, their refusal to be torn apart. The light was engulfing, and shadows were writhing, but within herself, she felt an overwhelming surge of warmth, igniting like a wildfire. "No!" she screamed, casting her gaze fiercely at the shadows closing in. "We will not let you choose for us." The darkness recoiled, erupting in a cacophony of angry screams, but Sarah pressed forward, refusing to back down. She could almost feel the tether binding her to the children tighten, a lifeline poised between her and her loved ones. "Together, we stand," she shouted, pulling Mia and Leo closer to her side. A rush of adrenaline surged through them, igniting a fierce determination. The faces of the trapped souls began to flicker, their mournful cries mingling with hers, creating an unprecedented harmony, a fragile connection born from absolute defiance. "You may have power over fear, but you will never control love," Sarah proclaimed, her voice resonating with a strength she didn't know she possessed. "We refuse to be divided." With each word, the shadows writhed, their presence thinning against the light that pulsed from the depths of the mausoleum. The anguished voices started to subside, the weight of despair lifting just a fraction. It was enough to give Sarah hope. The flickering light grew brighter, expanding as if drawn towards their refusal to succumb. Then, as if responding to their collective desperation, a radiant force erupted from the fissure, a blinding beam of light washing over them, cleansing what had once felt like a cage of darkness. The shadows screamed as they dissolved into vapor, whispering futile threats that turned into soft sighs of resignation. Holding Mia and Leo tightly, Sarah stepped closer to the light. The strength of its warmth enveloped them, pushing out the remnants of the shadows while drawing in the wretched souls that had lingered, trapped and forgotten. For the first time, she saw their faces not twisted in despair but radiant, soft with gratitude. "Let us go," they whispered, their voices merging with Sarah's and her children's. "Free us." She nodded, instinctively feeling the connection grow boundless, the darkness receding as love filled the void. Together, they cried out, "Go. Find peace." And just like that, the dark figures of longing faded beyond the threshold, their anguished faces transforming into serene reflections as the light enveloped them. The ground stabilized beneath them, and the chaos subsided, fading into whispers of hope. Sarah's heart began to ease as she opened her eyes fully to the surroundings, no longer suffocating darkness but an ethereal glow, illuminating the mausoleum with warmth and life, shattering the veil of despair that had marked Maplewood. "Mom!" Leo's voice rang with pure joy, shining in an innocence she had fought desperately to protect. "Are we safe now?" Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks, blending happiness and relief. "For now, yes. Together, we found our way." They stepped cautiously out of the mausoleum, the haunting remnants of Maplewood left behind, replaced by an open expanse soaked in light. What awaited them beyond this moment was uncertain, but above all, they had each other. As they entered the sunlight, Sarah breathed in deeply, the air fragrant with the scent of blooming flowers, an omen of a future untethered from dark pacts. For the first time, she felt alive, the shadows finally receding. "Mommy, will we come back here?" Mia asked, curiosity sparkling in her eyes. "No, sweet girl," Sarah replied, gratitude and determination intertwining. "We've escaped the darkness. Maplewood may have its secrets, but that's not our story. We will write ours, and it will be full of joy." Hand in hand, they walked away from the haunted past, each step resonated with newfound courage, promising to embrace the light that still beckoned beyond the trees. The horrors they faced would never be fully erased from memory, but it didn't matter together. They had pulled through, rewriting destiny against the darkness that sought to consume them. With hearts ignited by love and resilience, they ventured into a tomorrow spun from hope. And now, if you've enjoyed this heart-pounding conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Seriously, it makes a difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Let us hear what you think. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything. Together, we'll conquer the darkness.